What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Talking with My Hans channel. Today we have another book review on the Talking with My Hans book review club. A couple weeks ago you might remember that I said I pre-ordered Darth Plagueis and Shadows of the Empire. I can officially report to you that we have now finished both of those books. You can go check out the Darth Plagueis review. It has no impact on this one other than giving me views. But today we'll be reviewing Shadows of the Empire. If you're new to Star Wars and aren't aware of what Shadows of the Empire is, or if you're old to Star Wars and just have a really bad memory, Shadows of the Empire came out in 1996. It was Lucasfilm's attempt to make a Star Wars movie without the Star Wars movie. It had an album, it had a game, it had comics, it had toys, it had this novel. It had the whole thing. It just didn't have the movie. And quite frankly, it did a pretty good job of doing it. It sold really well. The game is still very, very good. It holds up to today's standards for the most part, except for the graphics. And the novel especially holds up. It's still very, very good. But do I recommend it? Do I think that you should go out and buy Shadows of the Empire and read it for yourself? Well, you're going to have to watch the video to find out. I think one of the first questions that should be asked when going back and reading books from Legends and the old canon is, how well does the story fit into the current canon? In my case, I have no problem slipping a story into my own headcanon if I think it fits well with the current Disney continuation. However, with a project nearly a quarter of a century old at this point, it's easy to imagine that Shadows of the Empire is not in that running. That, however, does not take away from historically looking at this book for what it was worth at the time, and in that case, it is really, really good. The story is essentially a what could possibly go wrong scenario spread out over 380 pages. Luke, Leia, and Lando, L names aplenty, set out to rescue Han Solo after the events of The Empire Strikes Back. Unfortunately, their plan goes south, and nothing seems to go as planned when Luke gets caught in between the crosshairs of both Prince Xixor and the Black Sun Syndicate and Darth Vader. The book takes you straight up to essentially right before Return of the Jedi and covers the entire time between both movies. Like I said, the book was released in 1996, 3 years before The Phantom Menace, and 13 years after Return of the Jedi. I'm not sure what I was expecting from the story, but I was a little disappointed when I found out that it played it mostly safe with the characters involved. With 13 years worth of Legends material to draw inspiration from, most of the book is centered around Luke, Leia, Lando, and Vader. The only one missing from the group was Han Solo, who was sealed up in carbonite, but not to worry, they did add Dash Rendar, who is literally a knockoff version of Han. They even make jokes about it throughout the book. Secretly, I kinda like Rendar, but don't tell anybody. The other thing about Shadows of the Empire is that sometimes the book gets a little cringy. In 1996, audiences were well aware that Luke and Leia were siblings, and that the intimacy shared between the two was a grave mistake.
Yes, it's you, Leia.
Before Luke made that comment in 1983, more than a few publications used the love triangle between Luke, Han, and Leia as a major plot device. See Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So why in 1996, after Return of the Jedi, there is vague references to Leia's affection for Luke is beyond me.
Very clear.
Hey, Professor!
Step back, I think I'm gonna vomit!
Also, and I know this is going to piss off a lot of people, but the scenes between Black Sun Crime Lord Prince Xixor and Princess Leia are super weird. For the most part, Xixor is actually a really good villain. He's capable and smart and tactical and menacing, but when he's around Leia, he becomes what every incel dreams to be. He emanates pheromones that make women want him super hard and obey all his commands, and because he has a crush on Leia, he uses it all the time. It's super creepy because all Leia thinks about is Han, but she also has this whole "it feels so right" thing going on too. But other than that, I gotta say, Shadows of the Empire was really an enjoyable experience. Sans his creepiness, Xixor is an excellent villain alongside the Emperor and Darth Vader. Actually, the villains in Shadows of the Empire are probably the best part about this book. I love villains that aren't all talk. These guys are both capable and thoughtful and raise the stakes of the book every time they're in it.
For the most part, I also liked how accurately Steve Perry wrote the main trilogy characters. It's a daunting task to take arguably 3 of the most beloved characters in the saga, plus R2 and 3PO, and do them justice. Lando was as funny as usual, and Leia seemed like the caring leader and diplomat that she was. Another positive I thought this book had was its moments with Luke. It was really cool to see a little bit of how he goes from naive Jedi learner in The Empire Strikes Back to confident Jedi Knight in Return of the Jedi. There are multiple sequences throughout the book where he really tries to open himself up to the Force like Obi-Wan and Yoda taught him to. You can really see the potential that Luke has as a Jedi, and Vader especially takes notice. Because we haven't seen too much of Luke's evolution between episode 5 and 6 yet in canon, this was a great look at what we could possibly see in the upcoming issues of the main Marvel Star Wars comics. Speaking of connections to current canon, I also felt like this book read a lot closer to how a lot of the new canon books are. What I mean by that is that Shadows of the Empire is fast-paced and never takes a moment to slow down, and it really makes for a really fun read. Every chapter is like a mini cliffhanger, and it just makes you want to keep going and going. I read 200 pages of this book in one sitting before I had to force myself asleep because it was 1:30 in the morning. Compared to our last review, Darth Plagueis, which took me ages to get through and dragged at points, Shadows of the Empire plays like an excellent Star Wars movie.
You know, one thing I forgot to say about Shadows of the Empire when I was recording this was the positive impact that this book, game, album, all had on Star Wars as a whole. I think Shadows of the Empire showed that books and video games could be launching points for other Star Wars materials. Who knows without Shadows of the Empire if we would have gotten other tie-in comics or books that spawned video games, that spawned different soundtracks. Shadows of the Empire really had a profound impact on the future of Star Wars. I think Shadows of the Empire definitely draws a positive for me when I think about the impact that it had.
Okay, so the final verdict. Do I recommend Shadows of the Empire? Considering it's a quick read with enjoyable characters and a possible look into one of the current avenues of Star Wars media, read it. And look into getting some of the other Shadows of the Empire material too. I think the book is definitely only a piece of the puzzle when it comes to this project. Check out the game, listen to the soundtrack, enjoy Star Wars to the absolute fullest whenever you get the chance to. Have you read Shadows of the Empire? Have you played the game? Let me know in the comments of what you guys think about this legendary Star Wars project, and we'll talk about it. But until then, I'll see you guys later.